Hello everyone. I hope you're good. So again, in this session, we are going to discuss one of the most important themes that's been asked by the UPSC over and over again, and that's called inclusive society. It's been directly mentioned in the GS3 syllabus that inclusivity is a direct point in the syllabus out there. So of course, you need to get certain points for this. You need to get certain points for this, and you can use that over across your 4 GS papers out there, across your 4 GS paper out there, and in your essay. And probably if you're coming from a humanities background there and you have certain optional that's humanities based out there, you can even use that. You can even use that because it's a major theme out there. Always, it's a job of a bureaucracy and a government is to create an inclusive society out there. It's to create an inclusive society out there. And what's the meaning of inclusive society? Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. The first is, sir, towards an inclusive society, empowering every Indian. Sir, when I say about what does inclusive society mean? What does inclusive society mean? An inclusive society, an inclusive society ensures equitable access and opportunities for all, fostering sustainable growth and shared prosperity out there. And shared prosperity out there. Okay, it's an equitable access, equivalent to what we consider in Article 14. Article 14 of the Constitution called the right to equality. Article 14 of Constitution, right to equality. And equality comes with two things. Equality comes with two things. And one of the aspects of equality is equal opportunities for all. It's called equal opportunities for all. Equal opportunity for all. So what does this mean? What does this mean? Equal opportunities for all. Take an example. Again, sir, one of the important aspects of equal opportunity for all is reservation. Is reservation. Another is a corporate income tax. How? Corporate income tax. So when you talk about equality of opportunity or equal opportunity for all, it does not mean you treat everyone equal. Does not mean you treat everyone equal. It application in terms of application, it does mean that you treat certain people as per their circumstances. As per their circumstances, not to treat every person out equal. You can't treat rich and poor on equal terms. You can't treat them. You can't treat scheduled tribe and a general category on a same term because both are different, coming from a different circumstances, dealing with different circumstances, and have a pretty much different life out there. So equal opportunities for all. What does it say? It say treat equal, treat equal, but based on circumstances. Not treat everyone equal on page. Treat equal, but based on circumstances. But based on circumstances. That means that means this is Article 14. This is Article 14. That means you need to government need to offer some specialized care to those that's not coming from very privileged background out there. So reservation is one of the aspects out there. Reservation is completely one of the aspects out there where you are what you're doing, you are rectifying the historical injustice that's been there in the history. You're being rectifying the historical injustice that's been there in the history. How? You provide certain quotas to them in all educational institutes out there or in the government jobs out there. Even when you talk about the corporate income tax, you take larger taxation from a rich people out there in order to develop a nation out there. That's again equal opportunities for all. You don't you of course you can't take corporate income tax from a poor person out there. You take corporate income tax from those rich people out there. Those rich people out there. These are certain. Then, sir, again, there has been talk of women reservation. Why? Again, they have faced the historical injustice of patriarchy out there. There has been talk of women reservation bill, because they have faced the blunt of patriarchy out there. So of course the government is doing much needed effort to offer them an equal platform, equal amount of opportunity that's been applicable to men, that's been there for the men out there. So equal opportunities for all, to treat equal but based on circumstances. If needed, provide a certain affiliative methods or affirmative efforts out there. If needed, to offer affirmative help. If needed, to offer affirmative help, or what you call a hand holding approach or hand holding approach. Affirmative help or hand holding approach. Hand holding approach. Hand holding approach. That's how thing works. That's what helps you to create an inclusive society out there. That's what helps you to make inclusive society out there. That's just one aspect of inclusive society, how you create all that stuff. Even the recent EWS, what you call the EWS certificate out there. EWS certificate out there. That's nothing but inclusivity aspect of a government, because again that's offering good opportunities for people that's been coming from a general category, but they are not economically that well out there. Of course you must know the limit out there, that's 8 lakh per annum out there. So again these are aspects that's creating inclusivity within article 14. Within article 14, that's one example. Inclusivity, that's creating inclusivity within article 14 out there. That's equal opportunities for all. Again article 15, article 16 does offer help as well, does offer help as well, because they are creating a reservation in the public sector domain. They are creating no discrimination based on caste, creed and sex, all these stuff. So again article 14, article 14, 15 and 16, article 14, 15 and 16, all these stuffs, all these articles are there in order to ensure inclusivity. Even the abolition, even the abolition of untouchability. Article 17, Article 17 of abolition of untouchability. Abolition of untouchability is nothing but an act that leads to inclusivity. Inclusivity, offered equal opportunities and to include all those marginalized section of society in a mainstream society. That's the true meaning of inclusivity. Abolition of untouchability. Untouchability. So this is one example. You can use this aspect in various other things as well. GS 1, 2, 3, 4 essay across. Now, when I talk about inclusivity, basically it's been characterized into two things. That's equal opportunities, equal opportunities, that's equal opportunities out there for marginalized section for every section of equal opportunities based on circumstances. And second would be to include marginalized section, to include marginalized section, marginalized section in mainstream society. In mainstream society, that's the basic characteristic of inclusivity is in mainstream society. in a mainstream society. Now, what does marginalized section of society means? It can be any streams. For example, small farmers, elders, women, transgenders, transgender. So all these sections, even middle class, and working class, middle class and working class, middle class and working class. So all these stuffs helps. Obviously, they need to be included into a mainstream society. That's been there. Again, equal opportunities based on circumstances. That's nothing but Article 14. Equal opportunities for all. Article 14. Even other things like 15, 16, and 17 has been a part that's been offering inclusivity in the mainstream society. Okay, so all these stuff needs to be taken care of. The policies should be such that include all these sections in a much holistic manner out there. Because again, a society is very fabricated out there. It's been stratified all over the world. It's been stratified. There has been a rich poor concept. Then there has been a caste concept in our nation as well. Then there has been a concept of men, women out there. So all these stuff. Look at the dichotomy that what issues are we facing? Men versus women, or what you call a patriarchy versus feminism. Patriarchy versus feminism, or we called it caste differences, caste differences, then class differences, class differences. Then, sir, the discrimination that's been there with elderly people, and there has been a question on geriatrics. Geriatrics. That's nothing but problems associated with elderly people. Problems associated with elderly people. That's been asked in the GS2 paper. Problem associated with elderly people. Problem associated with elderly people. So these are the stuffs that needs to be taken care of. Again, there has been lot of tussle between the working class and middle class. Then there has been again tussle between those who are at the power. That's bureaucracy versus common man. These are again certainty. Vedansh, hello, hi Vedansh. Then these are certain things. Again, what you need is inclusivity out there. You need inclusivity. You need to include all those sections of society that's been deprived basic level of opportunities out there in our country. Women, children, transgenders, elderly people, all these stuff need to be included. Even the financial inclusion is not that much. If you look at if you look at these penetration of life insurance and all these health insurance, that's not been completely great out there. There has not been much. Even people after what we call jam, that is Jandan Aadhaar Mobile, there has been a lot of saving accounts that's been opened under Jandan Yojana as well. But sir, again, the financial inclusion is not that much. People still don't save in SIPs. Yeah, Vidansha, people still only save in very less amount of people save in SIPs. That called systematic investment planning out there. Very less number of people, what we call do trading out there or buy shares and sell shares out there because they don't have knowledge. Financial inclusivity is not being that great for our nation. That great for our nation. Okay, so we have studied this Article 14, 15, 16. That how it's leading to reservation corporate income tax, how it's leading to inclusivity. Because again, when you want equal opportunities, you don't treat every individual equal. You can't treat a person that's been coming from Ambani's house and one is coming from that slum area. You can't treat them equally. Of course, you need to offer certain hand holding to a person that's been coming from that's been coming from a lower section of society. That's how thing works. So treat equally, but based on circumstances. That what's equal opportunity of law means equal opportunity for all under Article 14 now. Under Article 14. Now again, when I talk about inclusion, I've just given example of a called financial inclusion out there. Financial inclusion out there. Okay. 1.7 billion adults worldwide remain unbanked, limiting their access to essential financial services. That's been the case of world. But look at India. It's only after Jan Dhan Yojana or JAM, that is Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile, that people started what I say that opening up their saving account in the bank as well. But before that, there was no saving account. There was no saving account. There was no financial inclusion of these people. Take an example. If a government wants to provide a subsidy or provide a direct benefit transfer or a cash to certain people, how would they have done that? That this leads to leakages. This would have led to leakages. Again, this would have led to corruption by the bureaucracy out there. But with the financial inclusion out there, with a lot of people now opening up the saving account, government can directly transfer the cash to their bank account, and that's been happening in the agriculture sector. A lot of subsidies are given directly through cash, and that's been there in the direct benefit transfer. And all thanks to what we call JAM, Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile, and Jan Dhan Yojana. But sir, when I talk about, okay, now saving account has been open again, but when I talk about health insurance and all these life insurance, the penetration is still very less. When I talk about a lot of people do, not a lot of people are very involved in what we call the trading, crypto, and what we say that SIPs, or a lot of people know about the compounding system that we heard about in recent times out well. Not a lot of people read about the books called Psychology of Money and all these books out there on finance. Again, the financial knowledge is not there. Literacy is good. India's literacy on an average is 80.6. 80.6% people are literate over in India. But financial literacy is very poor out there. It's a very poor out there. And someone says to me in my earlier career out there that you can live your life without knowing mathematics. You can't live your life without knowing finance. That's how things works. You can live your life without knowing mathematics, but you can't live your life without knowing finance. You should know how to utilize your money. You should know how to extract work from your money. That's how important it is. Even a lot of millionaires say that the only knowledge you need is to know how to utilize your money very effectively. That's the only skill you need in this world to survive. Okay, so that has been very poor, especially when it comes to developing nation and when it comes to India. It's been excessively poor. People don't have a lot of knowledge out there. Again, again, what's the bottleneck? What's the problem out there? The problem is a government job aspirations. A lot of youth is just preparing for the government job out there in the whole 20s out there. So it's very appropriate. How will they get a certain time to increase their skill set out there? Again, the finance knowledge is very expensive. Even the CFA exams, the MBA program out there, it's in lakhs out there. Not everyone can afford that. Not everyone can afford that out there. So again, that's difficult aspect with respect to finance knowledge. Difficult aspect with respect to finance knowledge. Not for the finance knowledge. Again, sir, education gap is different. Education gap, what we have talked about. Not everyone will get services of private school. Not everyone will go to SRCC out there, Sri Ram College of Commerce. Not everyone gonna go to IIM's, Indian Institute of Management. Not everyone can afford to pursue CFA, that is Chief Financial Analyst exams out there, because they are in lakhs. They are for privileged people. Not everyone gonna learn that. So if they don't learn about the finances, how could you expect that they will make very prudent decisions related to their finances? How could you expect? Of course you can't. That's where inclusivity is not there. Financial inclusivity is only for the higher class people because they can afford that knowledge. Lower class people can't afford that knowledge. Of course, self-learning can be there with YouTube and all these free stuffs out there, but professional knowledge, it's still very expensive out there. Not everyone can afford that. Another is the economic cost. Another is the economic cause. Sir, gender inequality has been there. Inequality has been there. 15% highlighting the significant economic. When I talk about gender inequality, as I said, that there has been a tussle between men and women, and it's tussle between patriarchy versus feminism out there. Feminists say, okay, it's because of historical injustice of patriarchy, we are not getting what we deserve out there. We're not getting a due. We're not getting that top post out there because patriarchy has been still there. We are forced to work in houses. We are not allowed to work out in the market because of patriarchy. We're not given ample amount of opportunities with respect to our brothers out there. We are not given that sort of freedom which a man enjoys in the society. So, because of this gender inequality, women feel that in a mainstream society that's been run by the men, they are not included. They are not included. And right now, it's been evident with a lot of feminists out there like Indra Jaising, Shula Smith Firestone. All these ladies say that inclusion of women has been very minimal out there, very minimal out there. Take an example of a rural India. I mean, you must have seen that Sarpan series out there or Panchayat series out there. Sorry, women's decision making was not that at par. Even the whole gaon or whole kasba being run by the what we call a sarpanch pati out there. What we call a sarpanch pati out there. The woman presence in decision making, woman ability to take a decision is not there. She is just being restricted to that household chores that's been there for her since ages. So I mean that's what it's creating. Women felt that they are not, women feel that they're not included in the mainstream society, feel not included in mainstream society. And that's been evident as well. Look at example of parliament out there. The representation of women is very less. Look at the representation of women in terms of management, CEOs, very less as compared to men. Look at the representation of women in sports, very less as compared to men. Again, the key areas where women should be more, they are not. That clearly shows that inclusivity is not at par. Inclusivity is not at par. Again, we are doing much better. Women are coming out, they are grabbing the big post out there in the market out there. They are achieving everything that's been there. Look at that lady called Serena Williams out there in tennis, or what we called as a certain cricketers out there like Mithali Raj or Harmanpreet Kaur in cricket as well. So these are achieving certain good things, but still lot to be done. Still lot to be done out there. Still lot to be done out there. Pillar one is financial inclusion. Again, what government has done is that's need to be appreciated for government. That needs to be appreciated for this government of Bajpa. That's PM Jan Dhan Yojana and UPI interference. UPI has been a game changer for India. Has been a game changer for India. Has been a game changer for India. Has been a game changer for India because every person right now, every person, be it the local street vendors out there, they are using it. Street vendors, they are using it for their purposes. Again, it's convenient out there. Accessibility has been very easy. Convenience out there. You can use any time, at your will out there. You don't need to carry wallets with full of cash out there. So it eases down the transaction out there. That's been the wonderful part from this government as well. Wonderful part. IMF research indicate that 1% increase in financial inclusion reduce poverty by 0.3% out there. That's interesting fact out there, and I'll let you know how. 1% increase, 1% increase in financial inclusion reduces poverty by 0.3%. Reduces poverty by 0.3%. How? So take an example. Take an example. If someone is really interesting, you must have seen that YouTube channel of Ankur Warikoo out there. He always used to tell plans how to invest, how to retire early, how to invest in these mutual funds, how to maintain debt equity ratio of 2:1. How? If a man knows how to invest his even forget about the salary. Suppose someone is earning 30,000, 35,000 per month, and even he knows that how to utilize that 35,000, he may create a wealth. He may create a wealth. Of course, it will take a time, 20, 25 years, 30 years, but he may create a wealth because he knows how to utilize his money. That's how you reduce poverty out there. That's how you reduce poverty out there. That's absolutely. Finance is a great game. If you know about that, if you can study about it, that it's a great subject. It can even help you to buy those things that you can't even do with your own salary. That's how thing works. Because a lot of people now are trading with the crypto out there, bitcoins out there. A lot of people do what we call the ETF, exchange trade funds. A lot of people invest in Nifty 50 out there. A lot of people do SIPs, do compounding interest out there. So all these stuffs help you to do financial inclusion, and that why IMF says that 1% increase in financial inclusion reduces poverty by 0.3%. Take an example of policybazaar.com. Take an example of policybazaar.com. Policybazaar.com. It's a great tool of inclusion. It's a great tool of inclusion, especially with respect to India. And forget about India. See, life is uncertain. You must have read about the recent news of Diogo Jota. That's a footballer, Portuguese footballer. He recently lost his life. 20 years, 28 years old chap. He just lost his life. So life is very uncertain. But what we need a penetration of called health insurance and life insurance. That's been very less in India. That's been very less in India. And this policybazaar.com is creating awareness among the citizens out there to to create a safety fund for yourself, not for yourself, but for your family as well. That's how inclusion happens in society. That's how inclusion happens in society. That's how inclusion happens in society. Okay. I hope you got these points. Okay. I hope you got these points. Now, the second pillar is a woman inclusion. Again, sir, there has been a debate. I've said that's patriarchy versus feminism. That's patriarchy versus feminism. Women long enough has said that they have been subjected to the patriarchy out there. Doesn't get the enough ample amount of opportunities out there to showcase their skills. They are being treated as someone who just involved in the household chores, treated as one who just needs to give care to the family. But again, that's not a woman inclusion out there. Female labor force participation in comparison to male labor force participation has been less. It's been improving, but it's still less. Again, sir, look at the global stats out there. Only 68.1% of the global gender gap has been closed as of 22. Only this much has been closed. Still lot to be, still lot to be done. Female labor force participation rate rose to 37%. It's been improving, but still less. As I said, as I've given you earlier, see, there has been again when a woman works in a corporate, there has been called a glass ceiling. They can't move above that. There has been called casting couch when it's related to Bollywood out there. So again, things are not easy for women out there. Inclusion are not that. That's why that's why even family consider that okay, it's better to keep our daughters and what we call the Lakshmi Bahu in our homes as well, because society is not that great to treat a woman with respect. Even if you call it Delhi, it's considered to be a rape capital. The safety is not there. Safety is not there. If the safety is not there, again, the women labor force participation rate would not increase substantially out there. Take an example of Nirbhaya case out there, or recent Kolkata doctor case, that rape case out there. So again, it's not easy stuff out there. Security has not been there. Again, the security has been not there. Sexual harassment case at the workplace has been on a higher side. All these stuff restrict women or restrict their entry in the female labor force participation, in a female labor force participation rate out there. So I hope you got these points. Okay, I hope you got these points. Let's move on to the next thing. Education inclusion, that's another important stuff, sir. Education is all along the history is considered to be a tool through which you can uplift your class and status, and that's important. Now consider an example of a family that is poor, can't even afford two meals a proper, can't even afford two proper meals a day. Now if they get a sudden chance, again a family that has a daughter and a son, if they get a chance to educate some to educate only one of out of two, what decision would they take? of course, sir, they would try to provide a best education to their son out there, not to a daughter, because it's a son that's gonna represent their family. That's gonna take away their lineage, or I would say carry on their lineage out there. Khandan banana जिसे कहते हैं. It's not woman out there, because woman is considered to be a prayadhan, that she needs to be moved out at some point of time because of marriage out there. So again, the inclusion has not been there. Gender inclusion has not been there when it comes to education out there. That's example of a male and a preference of male education over a preference of female education. Now take an example of any person out there. Sir, higher education is a tough lot. A lot of people in Delhi prepare for civil service examination. They full time prepare for the service examination. Now, give me an example. Is it a privilege or a hard work out there? A lot of people call they're doing hard work. They're doing hard work. No, it's a privilege. You are doing nothing out there. You're not earning. You're not You're not carrying out your responsibilities. You're not carrying out your family responsibilities out there. You're just studying out there without any tension, because you're getting a certain amount of fixed funds from your family. So is it a privilege or a hard work? Sir, it's a privilege out there, because how many people could afford to do that? How many people could afford to take leave, or afford to do afford not to do any sort of work in their 20s? That's very limited out there. So again, is it UPSC? Often people says that it's providing a level playing field. No, it does not provide any sort of level playing field, because it does give preferences to those who are coming from an affluent family out there. Of course, because the process is 2 years. It's a minimum period required to clear the UPSC exam is 2 years. How would anyone with no resources could sustain that period? That's very difficult for them. That's very difficult for them, especially if you're coming from a lower middle class or a working class family out there. So that's how. That's not an inclusion. Again, take an example of IIM. The fees of an average IIM course is 25 lakhs. Of course, you can get loans at 8% out there from the banks, but risk capacity has not been there. Risk capacity, everyone can't bear that risk. Everyone can't bear that. If someone is coming from a lower middle class, 25 lakh, getting a loan of 25 lakh, itself is a traumatizing effect. Itself is a traumatizing effect. How could they do that? That's not easy. So education inclusion is not there. Even now, last mile connectivity of good universities has not been there. There has been a security issue with women. You can't send your daughter out there for different cities. Not everyone can do that. Everyone wants to secure their daughter. Again, last mile connectivity is not there for education institutions. Even the infrastructure is not that great with respect to that. Look at the terms of midday meal. Midday meal. Its objective was to offer a nutritional meal, but nowhere it's been offering. Nowhere it's been offering. How can a person who is nutritional deficient can be very intelligent or can be very brainy out there? No, it's not possible. To have a good mind, to to be sharp in nature, to have a good aptitude, you need a nutritional diet. Again, nutritional diet is a privilege out there in India. Not everyone can afford that. Of course, you can get those food grains out there, poor quality food grains in PDS, public distribution system. But how could you afford that dry fruit out there, that vitamins, that minerals out there? It's not everyone's cup of tea. And when you're nutritional deficient, it will reflect on your studies as well. It will reflect on your study. No one is donkey out there. Everyone has got a brain, but it's how you manage that, how you of course nourish that brain. That's totally up to diet as well. Not everyone getting that sort of diet. Not everyone is getting that sort of diet out there. I hope you got this point of education inclusion. That's not been that great in India right now. That's not been that great in India right now. Let's move on to the next thing. Now there has been a synergies and interconnection out there. As we say, the more inclusive society is, the more better it is. Take an example. Educated women are 50% more likely to effectively use financial services. If women were given all sort of treatment and all sort of financial knowledge out there, they are more capable to utilize those financial services out there as compared to men. That's been there in the studies out there. Digital education bridges financial exchange for marginalized communities, expanding economy. Again, digital empowerment is very important. Digital divide is one of the cases. Internet penetration is still not there because electricity penetration is not 100% out there. Okay, as simple as that. Internet penetration is not there because electricity penetration is not 100% out there. When you don't have internet, how would you expect you one can get a digital knowledge out there, or can subscribe to all these knowledgeable channels that help you to give knowledge, that's difficult. That's difficult again, because a digital divide again creates, not only create knowledge gap out there, it does create an economic gap out there. One who does have internet can use that social media to even monetize their account or earn money, but one who doesn't have an internet doesn't have any sort of opportunity out there to even garner that leverage, that YouTube or what Instagram stuff out there. That's how things matter. That's how things matter. So digital divide is another tool that's been creating not inclusive society, it's creating a bottleneck in inclusive society. Digital divide. Hindrance in inclusive society. Hindrance. Inclusive society. Again, economic multiplier. Once you're inclusive, once you're financially inclusive, once you're economically inclusive, educationally inclusive, country will move forward. Country will move forward towards achieving its dream goal of 5 trillion economy. Because you need a workforce, you need a better workforce, you need a workforce with skill set out there. You need that talented people to do something, to open up more startups out there. You need people to know how to manage their money. You need people who know how to do a compounding effect out there with that money. You need people, an educated workforce out there. Skills are different, education is different, but education is very important still. At this moment is still very important, because without education your thought process doesn't broaden out there. It helps you to think differently, it helps you to think broadly, it helps you to think out of the box at the same time. That's why it's important. That's why book reading is important. That's been declining in India over the period over the period. So that's these are the synergies that need to be there. Again, digital divide needs to be counted out, and that's the job of bureaucracy out there, to create internet penetration, to create electricity penetration out there, to create internet penetration and electricity penetration out there. Let's move on to the next slide. Building an inclusive society. Now, what needs to be done? What needs to be done out there? So policy and regulation. National strategies need to be there. National strategies need to be there. How financial inclusion needs to be carried out. It is through a private sector or it is through public sector, or does we need that PPP model? That's a private public partnership out there. We need this model in order to create public private partnership. Public private partnership. Public private partnership to create what we called inclusive society. Inclusive society. Again, what else you need? You need technological integration. Various edtechs has been coming out. Fintech needs to be there. Digital public infrastructure needs to be there for scalable operations. Digital public infrastructure. So if you can, of course, there has been this called online online digipin out there, where you can store all your stuff out there. Online digi system out there where you could store all these important documents of yours, government documents, college degrees, all that. So that needs to be there, and a proper information campaign needs to be there in order to make a proper awareness or branding out there to how to utilize these softwares out there. Again, Microsoft Office has become a very important thing. Excel is certain where which has been used everywhere in every office out there. These need to be there. EdTech can facilitate that, and they're doing that. A lot of EdTechs has been open right now, and of course, you can see that. As I said, public-private partnership needs to foster collaborations. Community engagement needs to be there. Grassroots initiatives is a must out there. Grassroots initiative. Take an example of a rural India out there. Grassroots volunteers need to be there who can carry that message to the last mile person, out there. Of course, the internet penetration has been late. less. You can't create ads or what we call uh, creative thumbnails for that. You need certain person who can carry that message and delivers it to every person out there in the rural segment. That's called that's called a community engagement. That's called a approach, bottom up approach, where you are dealing with the ground, where you're directly dealing with the ground. Okay, that's how thing works. Data driven approach is a must. You need to leverage data in order to know what's the effective output out there, what's the effective output out there, how things work, how things work. Because clarity of what's happening and what is the problem out there can only be solved in this present era through data. So you need to leverage that. You need to leverage that data as well. You need to leverage that data as well. Another, what's the conclusion? What's the conclusion for this? What's the conclusion for this? The conclusion, the path. Inclusion is fundamental for resilient and sustainable societal development. Strategic investment in financial women education inclusion yields exponential returns. That's our thing. One thing that's left is how to include geriatrics. That's elderly people out there. Again, sir, proper medical help needs to be there. Proper medical association needs to be there in order to track what's been going on, or data driven approach that what's been going on with the elderly people. They are dependent population out there. The major fact is they are dependent. Point is, how can you utilize them? How can you utilize them? Of course, they can be used in very experienced purposes out there. They have lived their life. You can use them in decision making out there because of their experience. That's how you leverage the importance of elderly people out there. You can even make them a teacher out there because they can, of course, share their life experiences, and experience itself has a value out there in the market. So that's how you create that. Again, how can you include transgenders out there? By shifting the thought process out there, by shifting the thought process, by making them educated out there, by helping them to eradicate the generational poverty and that stigma that's been associated with the transgenders out there. That's how you create things. Education is very important because again, it's nowadays people become celebrities through social media activities out there. A lot of people have done that, but again, for a lot of people, education is still a route to uplift their social and economic status out there. That's still a major route out there, especially in India. Okay, transgender has been a problem. There has been a problem with the transgenders right now for the inclusion. That's not been great. Why? Again, stigma has been there. Social stigma has been there. People don't associate themselves with them. They are not considered as a normal out there. They are not considered as normal, though they are normal, but they are not considered as normal in perspective of the normal people out there, in perspective of normal people out there. So how are you going to change that? Of course, information campaign, uh, civil society organization participation, government incentives or government initiatives out there. All these stuff, even judiciary can help that. Even judiciary can help that. Can help to include. Even in next topic, we will talk about how can we include those juveniles as well, those criminals that's been there, the prostitutions out there. They also need to be included. I'll tell you how they needs to be included, but again in the next lecture out there. I hope you find this lecture extremely knowledgeable for you. Do let me know about this. Thanks for having me. Thank you.